there, James here, and welcome to the first episode of Game Update. I don't really have a fancy name for it. We're getting close to finishing the game, so I thought it'd be a good idea to put out some videos periodically to kind of let you know what tweaks have been made, what's left to do, and they'll give us a better timeline on when the game's going to be completed, and when we're going to start the Kickstarter, and then hopefully when publication will begin. So to that end, I'm going to go ahead and just cover some of the things I've been doing over the last month or so. For those of you who aren't aware, I've been struggling with some medical issues pretty much this entire year. And it's really made it difficult for me to make any progress on my game. It's been very hit or miss, so I apologize for the slowed progress. But on the upside, I'm getting close to getting back to work. I'm hoping in the next week or two. But while I'm still off, I'm going to try and take advantage of any time that I'm awake and functional so I can actually make some progress on the game and get caught up a little bit. So let's go over the changes that I've made recently and kind of go over those, and then we'll talk a little bit about what's left. So the first thing that I changed was a couple of the skill names. The first one is Deception. So Deception is now going to be called Cunning, which is what it used to be called. I don't really remember why I changed it. I might have gotten some pressure about it or something, or it was kind of confusing. But the more I kind of went back and forth, I really want to stay with Cunning, and there's a couple reasons. The first is that word is used a lot to describe sword and sorcery characters, particularly Conan in the R.E. Howard stories. It's used a lot. So it just has that sword and sorcery feel to it. The other reason is, to me, Cunning feels more inclusive of the actual skill. I'm using the clip of Conan, the movie here, where he is tricking the priest into thinking he's vulnerable and shy, so he can get him off in the corner, off to the side, and then steal his robes. It's more than just lying. It's just being deceptive, and it's being diabolical and subversive and all those things. So that's why I wanted to change it back. The other skill that I changed is the magic skill. I finally decided to take the training wheels off and create a magic system that feels like a sword and sorcery style system. I'm very nervous about it, but I'm also very excited. This particular system was really inspired by the original Stormbringer RPG, which I think came out around 1981-ish. I don't remember. I was in junior high at the time. But it's a really great magic system that I think is still considered one of the most unique magic systems. It's like almost 40 years old. But the really cool thing about that magic system is the sorcerers have no innate magic ability to manipulate magical energies. They basically figured out how to open up portals and summon creatures from other worlds, other planets, other dimensions, whatever, and basically either persuade or command them to perform a task for them. So it's a much different style of system in that you have to summon the being, and then you have to either try to command it or enter into a pact with it, which is basically a mutually agreed arrangement. So it performs a task for you in exchange for you performing a task for it. I'll detail a little bit more in the end of this video. But basically, what I like most about the system is that it turns it from picking a name on a list, throwing some dice and seeing what the effects are in like a lot of regular magic systems, to a role-playing conversation. So the GM plays the part of the entity and the player plays the character, and you have to really role-play it out and come to some agreement on, okay, you want me to do this for you, then that's going to require you to do this for me. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple that way, but I think it fits the genre. It keeps the system sort of mysterious, because you don't know exactly what they're capable of or not capable of until you ask, and it fits the genre. So that's about it on the story. I'm sorry, on the skill names. The other thing that I've done is I've streamlined the character development system. So it's still a goal-oriented system. In the original system, we had scene goals, session goals, and story goals. They were worth different amounts because they had different weight or took longer or whatever to complete. And so you do several smaller tasks, and eventually you'd complete the story goal. I love the setup, but it just felt a little fiddly. And so I streamlined it a little bit. If you look on the second page of the character sheet now, there's just one line called quest. That's your basic story arc. And then there's a space for the number of objectives you're going to need to complete to finish your quest. So a real simple example of that would be something like your quest might be something like find out who kidnapped the princess, find her, and return her safely to the king. So that's your quest. And then there's going to be of objectives you're going to need to fulfill that quest. You need to figure out who kidnapped the princess. Find out why she was kidnapped. Is she being held for ransom, or are they sacrificing her? Is there a timeline that you have to worry about? You have to discover where she's being held. You can't rescue her if you don't know where she's at. You'll have to infiltrate where she's at and actually get her out of there. And then finally, you got to return her safely to the king. So there's a lot of elements that would need to be completed in order to successfully finish your quest. Typically, the quest is going to be from 3 to 6 points, and the objectives are going to be 1 to 2 experience points. So it's going to come out to about the same. In an average story arc, you're going to be getting anywhere from 8 to 15 experience points that you can use at any time as soon as you get them, just like in the previous system, to increase ability scores or to add new talents or qualities. There's a number of things you can do with your character in that regard. So it's just a way to make it a little bit easier. A few other things that I wanted to update was I wanted to add a little more personal information to the character sheet. So if you look on the upper left-hand corner of the sheet now, there's a portrait area where you can either draw your character, or you can drop an image onto the character sheet and for your avatar. And then right below that, you'll see that there's now some personal information: their age, height, weight, family, features. So that'll let you do a little more customization on your character, and it's an easier spot for you to reference if you got to talk about your uncle, John or whatever. Try to remember who your family members are or any pertinent information. So that'll allow you to personalize your character a little bit more. But the biggest change was updating the sorcery system. It's pretty much a complete rewrite. I tried to keep as many of the elements in place as possible, like the realms, the void, mist, and world. But I wanted it to feel more like an actual sorcery system. It's slow. It can take anywhere from a minute to an hour to perform a summoning ritual and have the effect actually carried out. So it's not flick of the wrist kind of magic. It's not for in a spontaneous in case of emergency break glass. It's really more of you need to sit down and prepare. It's not hours and days, but it might take you a couple minutes to summon a thing and do a thing versus just a couple seconds. There's also a corrupting factor. So the more you use sorcery, the more you will be negatively affected by mental and physical conditions. As your sorcerer takes breaks between castings, those things will start to go away. So it's sort of it gives the sorcerer the ability to sort of try to control how corrupt they get. They have the ability to sort of know how deep they want to get into it. But obviously, the more corrupt you get, the more powerful you get. So it's kind of got a cost benefit dichotomy that the player has to sort of take into consideration. But it's going to be set up kind of the same way. There's going to be a preparation phase, then the summoning phase, and then you either command the entity or you enter into a pact. That's how it's basically going to work. So those are the most recent updates. What I'm going to do for the play testing, it's been a little bit difficult scheduling, getting people in dates and times. So rather than trying adult cat herding, I thought what might work a little bit better would be just to have set dates and times, a couple days a week. Right now I'm looking at maybe Tuesday and Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific time. It's just have sessions that are scheduled. If you're interested in playing, jump in about a half hour early and reserve a seat, grab a seat. As soon as we have 4 players, we close the table and we start playing. If I don't get any players, if people are busy or no one's interested that particular night, I'm just going to cancel the session. It's no big deal. I'd rather have something that's easier for people to drop in, no commitment, not having to remember what night it is, or what if I miss. I don't want the pressure on people. So I've got time now. It's not a big deal for me to just open up a session and just stick around and see if we get any people to show up. I mean, if one person shows up, I'll run a solo game, or I'll ask questions, or we can run specific scenarios, or whatever. It could turn into just a hangout session. But they will be streamed. I'm planning on doing like the Facebook Live, YouTube, and I do have a Twitch account. I just haven't had time to get all that set up and everything, all talking to each other. But I will in the near future. So keep that in mind. But that's pretty much it. So those are the changes I've made for the next week or two. My number 1 and 2 focuses are getting my outline notes of the sorcery system into the rule book and out of OneNote, and then I'm gonna try to flesh out my setting a little bit more. And then I guess the third thing is I'm gonna try to be creating more regular content for my YouTube page and everything, so we can start kind of building that up. So again, I'll have a sorcery video in the next week or two that'll really gotta go more into detail, step by step on that. If you have any questions on anything on the video, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or our YouTube page. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Until then, I'll see you guys soon, and game on.